Hi there, very good evening. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive tonight. It's time to see what's making the headlines. And tonight we're joined by the director of the John Smith Institute at the University of Glasgow, Kezia Dugdale, also the barrister and former government minister, Anna Soubry. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for standing by tonight. They're going to be with us now until just before midnight this evening. Let's start by seeing what's on some of those front pages as we get them hot off the press here at Sky News. Starting with The Guardian, leading on Britain becoming the first Western country to provide Ukraine with long-range Storm Shadow cruise missiles. The front of the Eye says the Chancellor has admitted a key inflation target might not be reached, with Treasury sources believing inflation will stay higher for longer. On to the FT, the front page there also leads with the Bank of England's raising of interest rates and a warning that its inflation target will not be reached now until 2025. The front of the Times says food prices are on the way back down in the coming months. The Governor of the Bank of England blaming underlying shock for stubbornly high inflation. The Metro says investigators of a sheep attack in Gloucestershire have found definitive proof that big predatory cats are roaming in our countryside. And on the front of the Daily Mail, prison officers have been told to stop calling criminals convicts in case it offends them. Onto The Sun for you. Tomorrow is leading on a story on This Morning presenter Philip Schofield. And a reminder also for you that by scanning the QR code that you're going to see on screen during the programme, you can see it right there, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch with us. Now, as I said, we are joined tonight by Kezia Dugdale and Anna Soubry. Good evening to you both. Thank you so much for staying up way past your bedtimes, I'm sure, to help us look through the papers tonight. And we're going to start with, let me make sure I've got the right one, the Metro, actually inside pages, page 4. And of course, this is a huge story, something that we've been headlining here on Sky News all night. The UK gift of a cruise missile to Ukraine that brings threat. Kezia, let's start with you. What do you make of their coverage of this very big story tomorrow?
So this is a really significant development with regards to what's happening in Ukraine. We've got the UK Defence Secretary here, Ben Wallace, having made a statement to Parliament saying that we're going to be the first country, the United Kingdom's going to be the first country to give Ukraine long-range missiles, Storm missiles, which have the ability to go 3 times the distance of any existing missiles that the Ukrainian forces are using. It's not a risk-free endeavour, though, because it will likely lead to an escalation in what the Russians use in return. And we're very aware of the fact that the Russians have a type of missile that can go far, far further than even this incredibly powerful technology which we're about to give to the Ukrainians. So Ben Wallace described it in the Parliament today as a calibrated response, a considered response, but it does come with a risk, and we could be moving into a new phase here as Ukraine attempts to go for a counter action in response to what's happened over the past few days.
The Metro go on to say there's been a surge in Ukrainian strikes behind Russian lines as Kyiv prepares to launch a long-anticipated counter-offensive. However, the President, Volodymyr Zelensky, is saying it'll need more time as it waits for delivery of military aid. I mean, Anna, where do you stand on this story? Do you back what Ben Wallace is doing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's no debate about it. We cannot allow this illegal invasion of Ukraine to continue, and we must do everything that we can to assist the Ukrainian people in their determination to rid their land of these aggressive invaders. If you listen to what the Ukrainians have said almost from the beginning, is they obviously have the most extraordinary determination. They've been very successful since the invasion. I mean, everybody thought that once this terrible thing had happened, it wouldn't be long before Moscow would achieve what it wanted to achieve, and we could imagine Ukraine falling. In fact, it's been the absolute opposite. Yes, the Russians have taken land, but my goodness me, the Ukrainians have fought back, and indeed they've regained land which they lost at the beginning. But the thing that they've always said is, yes, we have the determination, yes, we have the ability, and we have the people, but what they lack is the kit. And they need precisely this sort of weaponry in order to do the job which they seek to do, which is to keep their country, well, they've lost a large part of their country because they've been invaded, but to regain their country and to see off Putin and his other war criminals who've invaded their country so disgracefully.
Well, this story is on the front of other newspapers, as you would expect, including The Guardian, that we had a brief look at that front page a minute ago. Let's have a look in a bit more detail. There are 3 stories on the front page, but of course this is the above the middle line, if you like. The UK sends long-range missiles to Ukraine in First for West. That's the headline there. And Kezia, the Guardian giving us a bit more detail, saying that Ben Wallace didn't say how many Storm Shadow missiles will be given to Ukraine, but saying that they estimate the UK holds a stock of between 700 and 1,000 of these missiles.
Yes, and each of these missiles costs £2 million. So this is a really significant financial investment in the war in Ukraine as well. What I think is so interesting about it, though, is that there's a suggestion from Ben Wallace that there might already be missiles within Ukraine. He wouldn't comment or be drawn too far on how many were being sent and when they would arrive and when they might be first be used. The second aspect of the story that was interesting in The Guardian is that it extrapolates a bit more as to why now. Anna's right to say Ukraine have been calling for these missiles for months and months. The answer to the question, why now, is really what's happened over the past couple of days with a significant increase in Russia's attacks on civilian infrastructure. The Guardian reporting there's now nearly 800 accounted for incidences of the Russians attacking non-military assets. We saw that in the past few days with the real sort of kamikaze-style set of drone attacks in Kyiv. And I think that's led the United Kingdom to go that this can't go on like this. There are many thousands of civilians now dying unnecessarily. There needs to be a step up. Remember, it's not one without risk, and the Brits have assured or asked Ukraine for some significant reassurance here that these missiles which we're giving to the Ukrainian forces will be used within Ukrainian territory, so they must not be used on Russian soil, because if that were to happen, that would really escalate matters in a way that I think would make many countries across the globe deeply, deeply uncomfortable.
Anna, I know you're nodding in agreement there. Kezia makes a really good point there about the risks. That's something also that The Guardian's article raises at the end, saying there have been concerns that these missiles could be used to strike targets deep inside Russia's internationally recognised territories. Of course, that would create a whole different situation, wouldn't it? I mean, is that a concern that you share?
No, because I think that we can trust the Ukrainians. They know that they have to use these missiles to attack the Russians in their invasion in Ukraine, and they must not go into Russian territory. So they know that, and the Ukrainians aren't stupid. They know that that would be a serious breach, and not only would it incur the wrath, obviously, of the rest of the world, but it would also mean that in the future there would be restrictions. Obviously, there'd be debate, and no doubt those restrictions about further supply of weaponry if they breach those rules. So, yeah, I think the biggest concern is going to be what the Russians do about this and how they then escalate things. But, as Kezia says, I think in all of this, because it's been going on for so long, I mean, we all know how important it is, but it does fall off the top of the stories, even the front pages. And one of the many outrages is the fact that Russia is blatantly attacking and killing civilians. I mean, it really is quite shocking. It is disgraceful, and we're doing the right thing by standing with Zelensky and his people and giving them the arms that they desperately need.
OK, let's take a chance to have a look at some other papers now and some other stories which are leading those papers. Let's start with the Financial Times. Again, a huge story today, of course, interest rates rising with Bank of England, and maybe uncomfortable reading for Andrew Bailey on the front page of the FT tomorrow. BOE lifts rates and warns inflation target will not be reached until 2025. The cost of borrowing hits a 15-year high. Threat to Sunak pledge on prices, and mortgage pain deepens. It's a painful read, to say the least, isn't it? Anna, let's stick with you on this one.
Yeah, it is. Look, this is obviously for people who are paying their mortgages and now see an increase in interest rates in already difficult times because of the cost of living crisis. This causes them yet more concern, puts more pressure, notably on families. And then you have the Bank of England's warnings, which are that inflation is not going to halve, as the government has said. It's made these, I think it's 5 pledges of things that Rishi Sunak says he's going to do by the time that the next election is called, which must be at the end of next year. And so one of those is this absolute aim that they're going to reduce inflation. And what the Bank of England is saying is that they're not on course to do that. And of course, it's a huge point for Labour, because I think one of their big messages, if you like, or asks of the British people is going to be, after 13 years of Conservative government, are you actually better off or worse off at the end of their tenure, as it were, coming into that general election? And I think overwhelmingly people are going to say we're worse off on all sorts of levels. But notably, this is bad news for the government if it seeks to achieve its target.
Yeah, let's bring you in on that, Kezia. I'm sure you've got something to say about it, because the FT saying that the Bank of England predicting that inflation is not going to fall as fast, and actually Rishi Sunak might miss his pledge to halve inflation by the end of the year.
Yes, I mean, Anna's absolutely correct. The single biggest, most politically potent question in any general election contest is when people ask themselves, are they better or worse off under the government of the day? So this will send shudders down the spine of those people in Downing Street. I actually don't think that inflation is the biggest story in this story, although, of course, it's the one we're focused on because it's linked to the promise that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak made to halve inflation over the year. This point about interest rates going up today is one we're all familiar with, and we know how significant that is to mortgage payers, and Anna's just detailed why. But the Bank of England have also predicted that interest rates will continue to rise to 5% by the end of this year. That means the pain is going to continue. The other thing to note in the story is it also predicts that growth across the United Kingdom is going to remain around the 1% mark for the next 3 years. That's going to seriously affect the government's ability to generate additional revenue to spend on public services. There's some really big bad news in the detail of this story.
I suppose the question is, what's the alternative? I mean, you're both in agreement here, but what else could Rishi Sunak and the Tory government have done? Anna, to you first.
Well, to me, it's rather obvious. I mean, we know that by our decision to leave the European Union, our national income, if you like, our prosperity has been hit and reduced by 4%. So one of the easiest, quickest hits that you could have is to have a better alignment with our European neighbours to make sure that we trade much more effectively and efficiently with them. And so you could have that debate about whether we join the customs union, whether we look at the single market, but certainly better alignment with the European Union would immediately improve our economic prospects. That would have a real boost for our economy. So there's one of the first things that we could do. But there will be other things. And tackling productivity, tackling growth is critically important. And it's tough, it's difficult, there aren't easy silver bullets. But investment in infrastructure, I would argue, is one of the ways that we can improve, certainly, our growth prospects.
And as we look at the front page of the Eye, new UK inflation warning as Hunt admits key pledge may be broken. Just in 40 seconds, if you don't mind, Kezia, what do you think the Labour Party should have done if they were in power?
Well, they wouldn't cut spending. That's the reality. And the UK government's forced to do that because of Liz Truss's failures. But you can't address productivity or drive investment without putting some serious government-led cash in. That would be the difference, I think.